Yeah, I think we are live. I just do a quick check and then we can start. Yes, we are live. Okay, welcome to Namaste debate. My name is Mani Nair. Today, I'm going to have conversation with Nicholas Ermeta. He is the councillor of City of Cambridge, and I believe it's Ward 8. And basically, I will start my introduction just with a simple introduction that he's a councillor from City of Cambridge. I will allow Nicholas to speak more about himself. He can say all the good things. So welcome to Namaste Debate, Nicholas. How are you?
Thank you, Manny. I'm doing excellent. I just wanted to thank you for this invitation. It really is a real honor and privilege to be here. And I love Cambridge. I love the opportunity to serve. I've lived in this beautiful city since 1992. So I've been living here for quite some time. And I have the privilege and the honor of representing the neighborhood that I grew up in. So, where I lived here back in elementary school and high school, I'm now the counselor for that area, which is, it's really, really unique opportunity. It's really special. And the area that I represent, it goes from Avenue Road in the south to Pine Bush Road in the north end, and then over from Hesper Road to Town Line Road in that general area in North Galt. But of course, I make decisions that affect the entire city of Cambridge, not just this area. And I'm very passionate about getting the youth more involved and also reaching out to a lot of our new Canadians. Very passionate about city planning, which is my background, and having more economic growth and just helping people with their day-to-day issues. And I have to say, with this pandemic, it's really shown how special of a community Cambridge is, how people stick together, people work together, and just seeing the sense of community and, how everybody is helping each other through this. And I'm also proud of this council and this board of directors I sit on and our staff at the city who I think are amazing. And Cambridge is in a great shape with this crisis. Obviously, there have been challenges, but I think we're certainly faring very well. And I'm proud to be part of that team. So thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, thank you for accepting my invite. I just want to tell everyone who is watching this live or later on the video that Nicholas is very interactive online, is very responsive, and it's one of the good qualities that elected representative should have. When somebody sends you a message related to something, they should be able to respond, sooner than later, right? So I appreciate, your responses.
Thank you, Manny. It's an honor.
Okay. So I looked at your profile, besides you being a counselor, I saw a lot of hobbies, and I see that you did your studies in environment. So I'm assuming that you are very, nature friendly, because I see a lot of really excellent pictures that you post. Do you want to talk more about that?
Thank you, Manny.
Yeah, so
I went to the University of Waterloo for environmental studies, a bachelor in planning, as well as Mohawk College for urban and regional planning, GIS. So I have the practical experience from college, where I've actually designed developments and done that kind of thing. But I also have the theory aspect from university as well, where you look at a lot of the rationale behind the things. And in some ways, I like to be the planner on council, although, of course, we have our own planning staff at the city. But I think it's an important perspective to have. And the way that we plan our cities, is obviously changing all the time. And especially with this pandemic, there's going to be new ways of planning things. And it's something I'm proud to be a part of at this time. And also, it's about creating communities that people want to live in. And not just the bricks and mortar, but designing neighborhoods in such a way to create that atmosphere for communities and to look for opportunities to bring people together. And in times of crisis like COVID, where we have to spend more time at home, how can we design our homes where they're not cages? You know what I mean? That there's still ample space for families to interact, who have to spend more time indoors, right? So I think these are all important things. Certainly, the roles of downtowns have also changed. Where years ago they were more the central business district of the city, kind of the way Hesper Road is today. But now, for our cores, we're looking at turning them into cultural hubs. And it's really the cultural center of the city where you can have a lot of good events and tourism opportunities, and certainly doing more with the Grand River, which we're so fortunate to have running through our city, and the Speed River as well for those in Hesper and Preston.
Do you want to talk about, what the city of Cambridge is famous for, like, or the important places to visit?
Yes, I would say what stands out, we're obviously a river city, and it's really the river that connects all of the communities, like all Preston, Hesper, and Blair. And certainly the river is largely why the city is where it is today, because back in the day, the rivers were highways. It's where you got your power from with our dams and that, and like for the industry. So it's really why the city is here, and it connects all the communities. And certainly the shift has changed more to recreation. So Cambridge is a great place, whether it's hiking on the trails or going kayaking, or swimming, things like that. We're glad to have these bodies of water in our city. And certainly the city is also known, being not just one community, but several communities, Galt, Preston, Hesper, and Blair. And we've done our best to try to unite them all, even after over 40 years of amalgamation. And certainly new neighborhoods are being built all the time, which will add to that. And also, we're very proud of our heritage in Cambridge. We really have unique architecture, with the beautiful limestone buildings and just the different architectural styles. And a lot of our architecture in particular is so much more unique than a lot of communities. So we're certainly ahead on that. And we want to continue to celebrate that.
Okay. So that's good to know. Thanks. The way we're going to do this is, we'll jump to the question. So we'll talk about pandemic vaccination. Then I just want to cover social media. Then we'll talk about the federal provincial response, and basically we'll end our conversation and the municipality bylaws. So if you're ready, I'm going to start with my first question.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Manny.
Okay, thank you. So how has pandemic impacted your life, and how have you been able to adapt and adjust to the new way of life?
Well, thank you. So, it certainly has been a new way of doing things. The role of a councillor, and certainly, for the mayor as well, we're used to attending a number of different events, right, on a regular occasion. So, for many of my years on council, I've always had something going on every week. I've almost been out almost every night or every day at something. So I would say one of the biggest adjustments for me is just the whole way of just staying home and not having any events to attend, at least in person. There's still stuff going on online. So that's been the big shift, is the events that are taking place, they're online events. So that's been different. We have all our council meetings online now. And I joke that I don't have to dry clean my suit as often now. So I think I've only worn it maybe 3 times this year if I've been out and about doing things. But it's just the whole idea of being home more and working from home. Although I did do a lot of my work from home already in terms of answering my phone and emails and that. I do all that from home anyway. So that part has remained the same. But just the whole events and having meetings online now, that's been a big change.
A change, okay. So regarding the pandemic, we know, there has been a lot of deaths around the world. But I also see there are a lot of opportunities in terms of the positive aspects of the pandemic and use of technology and a lot of other things. Do you want to share your thoughts on that, the positive aspects of the pandemic and the negative? Like, do you know somebody in your family or somebody, friends or somebody who had COVID, and what's your general sense?
Thank you, Manny. So, there certainly have been pros and cons. I'll start with the negatives first, the disadvantages first, because I like to end on a positive note because there have been some good things that
Right.
have come out of it as well. So, the deaths are very sad, very, very heartbreaking, and
Mhm.
we certainly remember them, and we certainly remember the families and the friends that have been affected by, loved ones who have been victims of this terrible disease. So, that's obviously a big disadvantage of all this. Very sad to see that.
Mhm.
And so there's been that, and obviously too, it's had an economic impact as well. There have been a lot of businesses negatively affected. Like restaurants that have closed, sadly. I think in the province, maybe it might have been 10,000 restaurants closed. So that's been very saddening. And just the mental health impact, right? I think it's been
Yeah.
hard on a lot of people's mental health, whether it's depression, suicides, whether it's people just having fits of rage, and people who may have reached a point of hopelessness. So that's been very concerning, and we
Mhm.
continue to work through those and to try to provide opportunities for people to get help. So that's been very hard. And the economic impact, there's been potentially 213,000 jobs lost, I
Yeah.
think, of the province or the country. This area has fared better, but we're certainly not immune to it, right? So the economic and social impacts, as I've said, are a big concern. The anxiety and things like that. But there have also been opportunities and good things coming out of it as well. I think having more people work from home is a positive.
Mhm.
And putting my planning cap on, planners have been trying to get people to work from home for many years, and it's taken a pandemic to kind of force people into it. But now, people are seeing the benefits. We have less traffic on our roads, and there's also this ability to be able to live and work anywhere, really.
Mhm.
A lot of smaller towns, for example, that have, they may have lost a major employer of some kind. Now they have an ability to positively impact their economy, where more people can move there because they can work from home. So it's provided an economic boost to a lot of smaller communities
Mhm.
who were struggling prior to the pandemic, but now they're seeing record building permits, for example, and better real estate markets than they have in the past. So
Mhm.
it's been good for a lot of those communities, and even communities like Cambridge, that have always had a pretty good economy. I would say from this, there's been a shift to people wanting to live in medium-sized cities more. You know
Mhm.
how historically Toronto had everything, and
Yeah, yeah.
that was kind of where people seem to have gravitated to. Now they're
Mhm.
wanting to live in smaller communities that still have those amenities.
Mhm.
And the Cambridge KW Guelph area has been great for that, right? How we have universities and colleges and a lot of the cultural attractions that Toronto has, but we don't have um, we don't have the traffic. And even though housing here is getting to be a lot more unaffordable, sadly, it's still cheaper than Toronto. People
Mhm.
can still um, afford some housing, anyways. Although
Mhm.
that's going to be an issue, I think we're going to have to look at more in the future. So I think that's been very positive, and I think too, having more people work from home, I think it helps families as well, where parents can spend more time with their kids, and having them around more with their kids has been very good for that. I've also noticed too, I've seen a lot more younger people outside lately, whether it's on the
Mhm.
trails, whether they're playing, hockey in the street. They've been out enjoying our parks, and I think that's great to see. Not to say there's
Mhm.
anything wrong with being on the computer, obviously, but I think it's good to have kids interact Obviously, right now, they can't see their friends, but I think it's good to see that they're at least active in the parks, but they're minding their distance and things like that. So I think that's very positive. Having kids enjoy the fresh air more and being more active, like playing more sports. I think that's good to see. And I've even heard parents are spending more time with their kids, playing more games and stuff like that.
So regarding the city, are you doing all the meetings online, or once in a while you're going, or what's going on in the city in terms of the office? How many people are there actually in the office, or mostly are working from home?
Yeah, most are working from home, except for emergency positions.
Right.
Obviously with emergency services or with our technology department. If a computer breaks down or something, there's always
Right.
somebody around. But everybody's of course keeping their distance, and there's a lot more working from home, and all our meetings are online.
So when you think some things will get back to not at the normal, but at least some people going back to work, do you see that happening this year or September or something, or what's the?
It's hard to say. It'd be good to obviously to be optimistic that hopefully towards the end of the year things will be more normal. So there is a possibility, but I think it's too premature to say right now because this is new to all of us, right?
Right.
And I think we're closer than we were before, but there's still more work to do, of course.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, my next question is about vaccination. Do you think Canada is doing a good job when it comes to vaccination rollout?
Well, this is basically new to all of us, right? And a lot of these decisions are being made at the upper levels of government, not at the municipal level. So I don't feel I have all the information to really make an informed comment. So
Okay.
I would have to refer that to public health,
Okay.
as well as our provincial and federal representatives, who I think would be in a better position to answer that than I would.
Okay. So we'll pass that question. By my next question is, how confident are you with approved vaccination and its effectiveness?
Thank you. I would say the same answer to that this is new to all of us, and the vaccine is being approved at the upper levels of government. They have more access to information than I do. So I'm not going to comment on that aspect of it. I would say public health and our MPP and the MPs would be in a better position to comment on that, just because
Okay.
I don't have all the information.
So, but yeah, would you be inclined to taking the vaccination? Like, what is your thought in general? Are you going to wait and see how things going to go?
I don't want to answer because I don't want to
Okay.
influence anyone. I
Right.
believe it's a personal choice. Like that's
Okay.
my opinion is it's a personal choice
Right. Okay.
that people need to do their research to see what
Right.
works for them.
Right.
And I don't think it should be forced either. I think that it should
Okay.
be a decision that people can make themselves.
Right.
And that's why I'm not commenting yay or nay on that, because I want everyone to do their own research and to make their own decision.
Okay. Okay. So my next question is, how long will it take before things go back to normal? What is your thought? Like 1 year, 2 years? Like, what is your general sense? How confident you are to the, back to normal or new way of doing things? What is your take on that?
Yeah, I have to say I don't know, Manny.
Okay.
I'd like to be optimistic and say a year. I'd like to be optimistic and say that, but I don't want to give anybody any false information. So I don't know.
Okay.
But I know that everyone is certainly working hard and doing their best to get things moving as fast as possible and to be safe as well, right? So we are moving in that direction, and we'll continue to. And I think if we all work together, we can try to make things as fast as we can, hopefully.
Okay. But you think 5 years, like I know, like it's just, I'm just trying to get your sense. Like, do you think within 5 years things would be can we go back to normal, or I think it'll be still longer than that?
I don't know. I'd like to say within a year we'll start to see some major changes in that regard.
Mm.
I do think that the virus will be around for quite some time, and that we are going to have to learn to live with it in
Mhm.
a manner that's as safe as possible. Obviously, just like any other virus, right?
Mhm.
And it's my hope that we'll be able to adapt fairly quickly, and certainly new technologies are being developed all the time.
Mhm.
So we are moving in that direction. That is the important thing, and I guess we'll see.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. My last question on the pandemic side would be, what would be the first thing you'd like to do once the pandemic is over?
I would say definitely socialize again. I'm a people person. I certainly miss people. I miss the city events that I attended on a regular basis. Even though I see people on the internet, it's not quite the same, right? There's just something about being there in person, and celebrating things together, and having that fellowship, and great in-depth conversations and stuff. So I miss all that. I
Mhm.
hope that to have some big family gatherings, and to see friends again in person, and to attend a number of events on a regular basis again. And also too, I wouldn't mind doing some traveling as well,
Mhm.
whether it's to Europe or Asia or the States. I'd like to see some areas that I haven't been to. Well, I've
Mhm.
been to the States before, but I mean like different areas of the States. So, but Europe and Asia, I certainly haven't been to, and I would like to visit those destinations. So hopefully some travel plans as well.
Okay. Okay, so I think on the pandemic side, I only had that question, but I can ask one more, which I'm very curious is, in terms of the public health and the city, like, are you getting like a daily briefing, like how you're connected with the public health chief? Like, do you get daily updates, or how does, you are also getting information through media and all those things?
We are getting updates from them, like from the pandemic control group as well,
Mm-hmm.
and our mayor has also been very helpful. Where whenever she hears stuff that she's able to share, she
Mm-hmm.
certainly does update council on that, and she's done a great job on that. So I would say we do get email updates, and things like that. We're not actually part of the meetings with that, just because it doesn't pertain to council, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the mayor and the others who sit on those groups, they're certainly keeping us up to date on all the issues, which
Okay.
is good.
So you basically get what? All the information through the mayor when it comes to public health, or you still get like direct information, or that's the way it works?
Well, just updates in general. A lot of like the
Okay.
mayor sends us stuff. Some of our communication staff do if anything comes into City Hall. So just regular email updates, and it's hard to remember everything. So I certainly keep track of the file so I can go back and review. But
Right.
they're very good for keeping us up to date.
Okay. Okay, good. So moving on from pandemic, I want to go to social media. I know you are also active on Facebook. Uh, my question on social media is, currently on social media, we are seeing an increase in hate messages being posted. Do you think, in the name of freedom of speech, it is acceptable? What is your general sense, like, in terms of freedom of speech and what people can say and not?
Well, I'm certainly very concerned about about the vicious attacks, and just the tone of some of the things that are worded, and
Mm.
certainly words hurt, right? And
Yeah.
there certainly are comments that are uncalled for, so that is very concerning. I don't like to restrict what goes online, because I do believe in freedom of the speech, but I believe
Mhm.
that people also need to be respectful, the ones making those comments. It doesn't do anyone any good, right? And
Mhm.
with the message they're trying to portray, it gets lost when they resort to those kind of attacks.
Mhm.
So, my philosophy is I don't mind if people vent in a respectful manner, And if people are angry and they have valid reasons for that, I understand. But they have to reevaluate how they're wording things and not resort to personal attacks. It's one thing to be angry. It's one thing to hold people accountable, but it's something completely something else where you're attacking people, and I don't think that's right. So I think people should continue to be able to have a dialogue, but I think they need to reevaluate how some of the things are worded, and to realize that words do hurt, and it doesn't do any good to knock anyone down, right? And any criticism is fine, but it should be constructive criticism. It should be another perspective, perhaps, of what someone never thought of. And I think the more ideas we get, the better decisions we can make.
Yeah.
So, to have that good, respectful, and effective dialogue, I would say, is absolutely important.
Yeah, but what I see is, it depends. Like, I always believe in a constructive criticism is good and all that, but it depends how the other person takes it. A lot of politicians, because they are unable to answer, and I have seen they tend to block people. It's just not because they're sending any hate message or anything. It's just that. So basically, there's a gap between, the people and politicians. What is the general sense when, politicians block people on social media just because they're doing constructive criticism? So it's very hard. So the other person feel hurt, right? So, like, if let's say if somebody, the elected representative or the prime minister, is not doing a good job, okay, you can make mistake, you keep repeating same mistake, and people get frustrated, and they start saying, right? So I see a lot of politicians, even on Twitter and Facebook, they tend to block messages even though they are not hateful. What is your thought on that? So it's not a hate
Yeah, I
message.
have
It's just that somebody else doesn't like it. The politicians block.
I have to say I haven't really seen that, at least from my
Mhm.
angle, but if it is
Mhm.
happening, I don't think that's right. I
Yeah.
certainly haven't done that. I encourage all kinds of feedback, and I think, like for me personally, if I do get criticism, that comes with the job, right? And
Mhm.
I need to use that as a way to motivate me to do a better job. So
Mhm.
I certainly welcome all kinds of feedback, and I don't think anybody should be blocked. I don't think that's right,
Mhm.
unless they're doing something horribly wrong, like
Yeah.
if they're making death threats or something, which obviously the police should be involved at that
Right.
point. But as long as they're acting in a civil manner that's appropriate, even if I disagree with them, or even if they make it uncomfortable for me, I think I need to have that feedback.
Right.
And part of the job is, if the stance I've taken is the correct one, I need to be able to defend that and not be afraid to defend that, right?
Correct. Correct.
So I certainly believe in engaging people of all backgrounds, and having all kinds of feedback, because it helps me do a better job.
Okay. Okay. That assurance is always good. That's what. But because there was a lot of, even in US and all that. So there was a debate about whether the politicians have the right to block the users or not, right? Because once you're elected, you're in the
Mhm.
public domain. People can ask you a question. Of course, if there is something really bad, I totally support that, blocking and all that, or take whatever action you have to take.
And also, too, the other thing I wanted to be careful with what could be considered to be hate is, I mean, I'm just talking in general terms here. I'm not talking about any individual in particular,
Right.
but I think sometimes something is looked at as being hateful when all it is a different
Correct.
opinion.
Correct.
So I don't think we should confuse the two, right? And
Correct.
I I know everyone's different, and
Yeah.
everyone has different ways of reacting to things, and some people might think it's hate when it's not. Like, I get that,
Yeah.
but for me personally, I don't take anything like that personally, right?
Okay.
If someone's got a different opinion, I welcome it, and if I'm able to help them, great. And if not, then I'll explain why I took the stance that I did.
Right. Okay. Good. Good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Uh, my next question is: do you think social media platforms should be suspended 1 month before the election to reduce the impact of fake news and propaganda that can have impact on voters' decisions?
Thank you, Manny, for the question. It's probably something I would be very careful with because I want to encourage free debate, right? So
Mhm.
I would be inclined to say no.
Mhm.
Now, if something can be proven to be false,
Mhm.
then maybe that would need to be addressed in some capacity. But I don't feel right blocking discussion groups or
Mhm.
shutting down accounts. I've never been like that. I don't agree with it. Obviously, if somebody is doing false information, then that would need to be dealt with. And how you would do that,
Mhm.
I don't really have any ideas at this point. Like if somebody is saying something about me that's not true, I don't think that's right. But I believe in free speech, and I think people should be able to exercise that as much as possible, as long as no harm is being done to someone. And
Mhm.
also, too, with some of those groups that you touched upon, one problem I think too sometimes, and I'm just talking in general terms, not anybody here,
Mhm.
but with some campaigns, sometimes the supporters try to sabotage another candidate, and they use
Mhm.
social media to do it. And I
Mhm.
don't agree with that either.
Mhm.
So I'm all about free discussion, but is there a way that we can do that where we're not harming anyone? I think that needs to be key.
Okay. Do you feel some sort of a governance, either it can be an independent, some sort of a regulatory mechanism that keeps a tab on social media content? Do you think that will be helpful? Like right now, Twitter, Facebook, they are doing their own way of doing it, but I always feel there should be an independent organization keeping checks on all these things. What is your take on that?
Well, I would be open to it. I would need more time to think about it to be able to take an official stance. But
Mhm.
I think it's good to have that kind of feedback, and it may be something to consider. I just don't want censorship, right? I want to be very careful about that, where people can still have the freedom to say what they think, and because it adds to the discussion, right, and to the
Mhm.
debate. So I would be open to it, but I would want more time
Mhm.
to think about it before coming to an opinion.
Okay, good. Okay, moving on. We done the social media part. I want to focus on the national federal level. I just want to get your sense. What's your take on the Trudeau government so far? How do you rate them from 1 to 10? 10 means extremely good. And so far, what have they been able to achieve and areas they can focus more and improve?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So first of all, um, I'm not going to grade them just because
Mhm.
I think being an elected official at the another level of government, I don't think it's appropriate for me to actually grade them. So
Okay.
I won't be assigning them a grade.
Yeah.
But what I could do is I could talk about some of the pros and cons because
Mhm.
everyone's got that right. And
Right.
I want to emphasize too. I can't imagine how difficult of a position they're in because I'm not at that level of government, right?
Right.
So I want to be very respectful
Mhm.
and very understanding that they're in a difficult position. And at the municipal level, of course, we have our challenges and we're all trying to do our best to get through this and to do the best job for everyone. So just kind of looking at my notes here, I would say what I think they've managed to do very well is I think they have done a pretty good job with communication, giving us the regular updates on a
Mhm.
regular basis, and explaining why they've arrived at certain decisions.
Mhm.
And I also think too they've done a pretty good job on the affordable housing front. How
Mhm.
they've been able to set aside money for affordable housing. I
Mhm.
think it's around $10 billion are investing in affordable housing, and
Mhm.
certainly we hope to get some of that funding to our area because we're in great need of affordable housing in
Mhm.
Cambridge and the region, right? So I think that's been a good advantage, and certainly the federal government has shown an interest in investing in infrastructure,
Mhm.
whether it's broadband internet, whether it's in roads or transit, or whether it's renewable energy, or agriculture related things they've invested some money in.
Mhm.
And even to when it comes to like better standards like for housing and stuff. So
Mhm.
I think they've done good with that, and certainly the
Mhm.
infrastructure is going to create jobs, right? So I
Mhm.
think the federal government, by investing in infrastructure, they're keeping the economy going and employing people in the process as we get out of this, right? I
Mhm.
would also say too, they've done a pretty good job with the jobs and economic growth. How Canada still seems to be a great country to invest in.
Mhm.
And the economy is always something we need to work on no matter what. But I think generally Canada is a good place to do business. I think we're still good on that front.
Mhm.
And I would also say too, it might be good for them to consult with more experts on this file, just because of how complicated COVID-19 is. That they should maybe try to get a wider range of feedback on how to deal with this.
Mhm.
And I know there's all kinds of different opinions out there, and I
Mhm.
think it might be good to do more consultation with different groups just to have different perspectives so
Mhm.
that we can look at a number of different ways to get out of this.
Okay.
And so those are just kind of my thoughts on the federal government.
Okay. So regarding the $10 billion you talked about, do you have more details on how much the cities will get, like Cambridge, Waterloo, Kitchener, or the region in general? Like how much of that we will get it, and what is your sense? Let's say we get, let's say, $10 million. So what does it mean in terms of affordable housing? How many houses are we talking about? Let's say if it's a 10 million house.
Well, there's no answer on the details yet, and
Okay.
I know that our representatives at the region and the mayor and our council, we're all working very hard to create affordable housing units in this area. So we continue to have those discussions, and by doing that, we'll have a better idea in the probably in like the year to come. So we don't have that information right now, unfortunately.
Okay.
But at least it's very good news, obviously, right? And it'll be good all over the province, all over the country. And
Mhm.
it probably depends too on the level of involvement in the affordable housing. So
Mhm.
obviously, government created units are going to cost more because it's just the government behind it, right? But if
Mhm.
you partner with community groups,
Mhm.
then maybe that the dollars might go further if you partner with different community groups.
Mhm.
I know in Cambridge we've had a number of groups approach us where they're interested in partnering with the city or the region or the federal government to create those units. So I think too, like it depends on the level of involvement from different organizations, and certainly by working together with a number of groups, the dollars can go further and hopefully more units created.
Okay. Because the way I see is, let's say if the government gives $1 million, so how many houses you can build, right? So it depends how much. Okay, of course we are getting money, but I see this
Mhm.
as a patch up issue. Like I would like to see a unaffordable housing emergency crisis declared, because right now the house price here on average is
Mhm.
650, and right now they're based on the new report, it's saying the average combined Kitchener Waterloo is around $800,000. And if we get $1 million, what difference is it going to make? Like how many houses can we build?
It's true, Manny. I'm certainly very concerned about the lack of affordability out there. I know recently in Cambridge, the house prices went up by 94,000, an average of 94,000 in 1 month,
Hmm.
which I think is absolutely insane that to go up that quickly. And the home I grew up in, which I live in a townhouse now, like my parents had sold our original house, and that was before the prices went up. But just to tell you, like the home I grew up in now would be worth 1.2 million. But at the time when my parents bought it in 1992, when we moved to Cambridge from Hamilton, and my parents moved us to Cambridge from Hamilton because the homes were cheaper at the time than what
Hmm.
Hamilton was. And plus they like the small town atmosphere as well, the heritage buildings and the river and that too. Because they wanted to live in a city that was, more unique than the average city. So that's why Cambridge went out. But anyways, back then, the home I grew up in was 215,000, and now it would be 1.2 million. So it's to go up by $1 million in that amount of time is astronomical. It's unbelievable, isn't it? And so I mean, a lot of people my age, they're still living with their parents. They can't afford to have their own home. And either that or they have to move like out of the city. Like my sister had to go to Owen Sound to get a house. That's the only way she could qualify to get a home. She had to say to her employer in Waterloo, I still want to work for you, but I can't afford to live in the Waterloo region. So she's like, I have to move 2 hours away to Owen Sound, and I still want to work for you, but I'm not going to do that drive every day. So she's working from home essentially so that she can have a mortgage up in Owen Sound. And, I know other people who are renting in Cambridge, but just to get in the real estate market, they buy a house down by Windsor and then they rent that out to pay the mortgage just so they can own a property somewhere. Like you're hearing of all different things just so people can get in the housing market. And it's a real concern. And I don't know how much higher the prices can go, but it's, the dream seems to be dead for a lot of people, unfortunately. But there's always hope, and it's announcements like that give us that hope. And at the City of Cambridge, too, one thing I'm very proud of, Manny, is we have excellent affordable housing incentives in Cambridge. So what we do is we have a thing called tax increment financing, where if a developer does affordable housing in the City of Cambridge, we make a deal with them where we'll reimburse them some of the costs if they keep the units at below market rent, essentially. And we do it in select areas of the city, like along Hesper Road or like the core areas would be probably another area we would look at that. And, specifically areas where there's lots of transit. And we do other things like waive development charges and to keep the price lower. And we also even waive back the parking requirement, because for the affordable housing units, the studies do show that not as much parking is needed, especially if it's on a transit route. So we're able to make deals with the developer to get lower rates. And that's one thing I'm very proud of with Cambridge Council, how we're one of the first municipalities to do it. I think Peterborough is the other one that does it, but we're certainly ahead of most municipalities by having those kind of incentives in place.
Okay. My last topic was is the municipal. Probably I'll bring some topics about the builders later on. So we talked about the federal government, and you don't want to rate. I totally understand that. What is your opinion? The same thing about the provincial government.
Yeah, so thank you, Manny. I would say the same thing about the provincial government, that as a member of an elected member of another level of the government, I don't feel it's appropriate to grade the provincial government. But what I can do is I can certainly talk about some things I think they're doing right and some things to work on. So I think they too have been pretty good with affordable housing as well. They're investing in some affordable housing units in the Waterloo region as well. I forget the exact number, Manny. I wish I wrote it down, but the provincial government has provided some funding for affordable housing. And like the federal government, they're also very good in investing in infrastructure as well. Some of it could potentially be controversial, but also I think there's a need, like widening the 401. That's one of the projects that the provincial government, like they're widening it through Cambridge, through Milton, between the Sixes, and through Mississauga as well. And I think they're widening the 400 and some things like that. So they're investing in roads. They've certainly helped a lot of the rural areas replace bridges as well. So, investing in infrastructure it creates jobs, which are really needed in this difficult time with the pandemic. And so the province has been very good that way with the infrastructure and employing people. I find that they've been pretty good at communication as well. How Premier Ford is making announcements on a regular basis, and he's explaining what's going on and the rationale behind some of his decisions. So, like the feds, he's done a pretty good job with communicating as well. I would also say too, what the province has been good at too is they're involving the municipalities a lot as well when it comes to feedback on different issues. So we get correspondence from the provincial government on a regular basis where they want the city to provide feedback on something, and I think it's great. I know during my first couple years on council, it was more the region, I think, that was consulted, and now I'm noticing with Premier Ford, he's also contacting the cities as well as the region. He's contacting the cities, which I think is important to have us at the table when these decisions are being made. So that's very positive. And also too, I would say as well, he they're investing in transit as well. That was the point I meant to mention earlier. We're certainly having conversations still about getting the GO train to come to Cambridge. And they've been receptive to at least sit down with us and have those discussions. The minister's been very good for that. No decision's been made, obviously, but we continue to have those discussions. I also think, too, they're doing pretty good on the mental health file as well. When we met with the minister on that, they showed an interest in helping people in need with that. So I think that's another good thing I'd say the province is good for, trying to do something about those in need of mental health. And I think too, he's also making it so the approvals can be done quicker to get more projects going. So there were developments in the past, for example, that were beneficial to a city, but they kind of got stuck up in the process. And he's been good for having the projects move along quicker. And obviously that needs to be balanced with consulting the public, but I think they are cutting the red tape, which is good. They're keeping things moving while still ensuring adequate time for public feedback, which is also important. So in terms of a few disadvantages, we are concerned about small businesses. So we've got some concerns with the reopening of Ontario Act, where we kind of we're kind of concerned about the impact on small businesses. It seems like the big box stores are still doing reasonably well, but we're concerned about the small businesses. And the region the other day passed a motion where they want the province to review that more to ensure that small businesses benefit as well as the big box stores. So there's that. And also there were some concerns about changes to the Conservation Authorities Act. And we're concerned it might diminish the role of conservation authorities.
Right.
And as a council, like on Cambridge Council, we took a firm stand that the province needs to continue to honor the conservation authorities and include them in the decision-making process. We understand they want to have things move along more efficiently. We totally get that, and there has been a lot of work done on that to date. But we don't want to neglect our conservation authorities. They provide a lot of value to the approval process, and the environment is paramount, right? So we want to keep that in the forefront.
Like you said, on the topic of the conservatory thing, I think around the world also the rationale that government gives is, okay, we want to move things faster. Okay, bypass the public consultation or involving the right. And I see, okay, once in a while, I can understand, but if it's a pattern, then it basically gives an impression the government doesn't even take into account what the people want or what the environmentalists want, right? So I do understand the process of speeding up, but I think if we set a standard of bypassing it, one incident Okay, but if it happens 2 3 times, then it's not in terms of the democratic process. I feel that won't be the right way to go.
Yeah, you're right, Manny. And just to touch upon that, so we had a minister zoning order in the city of Cambridge where you're probably familiar with where our Walmart is, like that power center. So as you know,
Mhm.
there are some empty stores in that power center, and that area will be redeveloped into mixed use development. So it's still going to remain commercial for stores, but we're also aiming to have office buildings, having residential, whether it's a few townhouses or apartments.
Mhm.
And we were able to get a minister zoning order from the province that speeds up the rezoning on that. And there it made sense. It's right on the 401. It's right when you come into Cambridge. It's an area that could, instead of being parking lots all over the place, it could be an area that we could make to be more welcoming and have, a better identity for the city, like a major gateway essentially. And
Mhm.
the if we would have just gone through the regular process, it could be at least 2 to 4 years.
Mhm.
But with the stroke of a pen, the province was able to rezone that very quickly. They had the support of Cambridge Council, myself included, and
Mhm.
that was an area where it made sense
Mhm.
because no one lives in that area, right? So you're not impacting an existing neighborhood where you want to have more public consultation.
Mhm.
It's out by the highway where nobody lives, but it's going to be a community for tomorrow. It's going to be a major gateway, a welcoming center for the city of Cambridge.
Mhm.
And there it made sense, right? But in another part of the city, there would be more sensitivity, obviously, because you're dealing with existing neighborhoods. There might be environmentally sensitive land
Mhm.
surrounding the development where you want to be mindful of nearby wetlands. And with this Walmart Power Center, another reason why it made sense to rezone that as quickly as we did is the environmental constraints weren't there.
Mhm.
So, it was a prime example where something could be moved up fast, right? But there
Mhm.
were other areas of the city where it wouldn't make sense because,
Mhm.
when you do something, you want to make sure it's done right. You want to make sure everyone's, had a thorough feedback, right? And you
Mhm.
want to respect the environment. So the west side of Cambridge, for example, where there are a lot of wetlands and things like that, stuff like that, you need the adequate time to work through, right?
Mhm. Okay.
And certainly when flooding is at stake, that's another issue because in Cambridge, in our three core areas, we have a lot of floodplains. So we want to make sure that
Mhm.
we're respecting that and we're creating safe situations and not endangering people's lives, right? So you need all that adequate feedback.
Mhm. Okay. So that's good to know. Thanks. Okay, I do understand you don't want to rate them. That's perfectly fine. You're elected representative. You want to stay neutral on that. And I think you talk about all
And
the
I was
good
just gonna
and the
and I was
things
just gonna
that
say
you
too,
want
Manny,
to
about
see
the
changes, right? Especially the lockdown.
and I was gonna say too, Manny,
Hello?
about the minister zoning order at the power center as well. The province did not force that on the city. They could
Okay.
have because the provincial government supersedes the city, and cities are a creature of the province, so they could have done it against our will, but
Mhm.
they asked the city for feedback, and obviously as a council we felt it was appropriate. But the province did consult with us, so it was good to see that rather than them force it on us.
Okay. Okay, good. So there's some balancing act there. So we talked about national, provincial in general. What is your thought on this whole? So just do a quick time check. So we'll have another 10 minutes. Just being mindful of your time. What is your thought on the current lockdown? You think it should open up? I feel now stay at home is too much counterproductive. One is for the economic reasons, small businesses are impacted, and it's also impacting, people's life, children's life, mental health, a lot of things. What is your thought on that?
On whether things should open up?
Yeah,
Is
on the
that what the
lockdown. Yeah,
question
yeah,
is?
yeah.
Well, it's something I'm still trying to do more research on, so I want to be very cautious with that. I think
Okay.
eventually we are going to have to go in that direction, right? Because the economy can only take so much. But at the
Mhm.
same time, we want to be safe, right? We don't want to endanger people. So I think we need to achieve that balance, whatever that is. We
Mhm.
need to get things reopening again, but we also need to make sure we're not putting people in harm's way. So, however that can be achieved would be great.
Okay.
So I think, and I think too, it's good too that the premier continues and the federal government continue to listen to the advice of public health as well. And as I said, there should be a number of different groups as well commenting on that, and it's good that that's all part of the discussion.
Okay. Good. Okay. My last topic: municipal. So my question is: recently there was a petition call for the city of Waterloo to allow backyard fires. What is your take on this? Should the city allow, since other cities allow it and it is also safe? And the other thing is, do you think we should have a uniform bylaw in Waterloo region, one bylaw for the whole three cities and the smaller municipalities, right?
Yeah, thanks, Manny. So my answer on that is I live in Cambridge and I'm on Cambridge Council. So as far as what Waterloo should do, I would
Mhm.
leave it up to them to decide, but I can speak about the Cambridge context.
Mhm.
For me personally, I would be supportive of allowing backyard fires in the city of Cambridge. I
Mhm.
believe that there have been other cities that have successfully done it. Not to say that when one city does it, we all should. Like I think it needs to be evaluated in the context of that particular community. But I
Mhm.
believe in Cambridge, it would be something that would work quite well. The city of Kitchener has had some success with that. Another city that allows backyard fires would be the city of Sarnia, and there it works quite well. So it's something I am comfortable with. In this pandemic, people want to socialize with each other. Obviously, between
Mhm.
friends right now, it's inappropriate. But immediate
Mhm.
family members, like the ones that live together, I think having a fire in the backyard is a great way to bring,
Mhm.
the family together. And with my own family, with my own siblings, my own parents, we grew up having campfires, not in our backyard, obviously, because Cambridge didn't allow it. But when we went camping or, when I would visit my relatives in other cities, we would
Mhm.
have campfires in their backyard. And I think it's a great family activity. It brings people together, roasting marshmallows and playing games around the fire
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So, and just with the pandemic, with families being cooped up in their house all the time, I think people have a need for interaction and socializing with each other. So I certainly think it's a great family activity to have in the backyards, and
Mhm.
so it's something I would personally support it. But I also want to be mindful that the city would also have to consult with the community.
Mhm.
And I think before a council were to ever make a decision, if we did have that discussion, I think we need to hear from everyone because there may be things on the opposing side that we didn't hear, right? So I think we have to consult with everyone before making a decision. And there could be room for compromise. I know that some people have a concern about smoke,
Mhm.
and obviously a bylaw would take into account the size of a yard, but
Mhm.
even on the larger yards, I guess there's still some people still might be concerned about smoke in the neighborhood. So maybe a compromise could be smokeless logs, for example, which do exist, or there could be different compromises potentially. So in short, I would say it's an item that is worth discussing, and something I certainly like on a personal level, but I would also want to consult with the city as a whole. And then also an answer to your question about a regional bylaw, my own position is the bylaws should be done locally by the local municipality, because what works for one city may not work for another. It might, and be, I mean, if it works for all three cities, they can each have their own bylaw. That's how I look at it, right? And I think one of the good things about having the bylaws be left up to the individual cities is people can choose where they want to live based on the bylaws. So just to talk in general terms, if they want to live in a city that is strict with parking, there are cities in Ontario that are strict with parking that they can move to. They want to move to a city that's more laid back with parking. There are cities that are more laid back with parking, and I think it's good to have that variety. So I think that, you know, because Cambridge is a completely different city than Kitchener or even Guelph, I think the bylaws should be done at the local level. But if there is a bylaw that works for each city, then each city could have their own bylaw allowing it. So that's my position.
No, I do understand your point. You know, if different cities want to have it, that's totally. But the other thing is, we also have region, right? Region of Waterloo. So we have two. So basically, we have federal government, we have provincial government, we have municipal government, then we have regional government, right? So within the city itself, we have regional. So two different. So in one side, on the region side, all the three cities have the same law. When it comes to bylaw, all the three cities have different laws. So there's a little inconsistency, I feel.
That's true, Manny, and I think sometimes the inconsistency is sometimes an advantage. That it allows for uniqueness, where because in Cambridge we're very passionate about our identity, right? So we like having that flexibility that, you know, Kitchener may have a certain way to do something, we'll have a certain way of doing something, and sometimes we might take the same approach. Like there's nothing wrong with taking the same approach on some issues, but I think it's good to allow for an ability to have different ways of carrying things out. And I also think too, even though we are in the region and you do have two levels of municipal government, each level has a role. So the mandate of Cambridge or Waterloo or Kitchener, for that matter, would be more local concerns, whereas the region is more regional concern. So just to give you an example, regional planning would be a regional concern, right? Where, you know, you try to have smart growth to save farmland, that would be a regional concern. But how the development is going to look like the character of that development, that would be a city concern. Or even with water, where, you know, water is more of a regional concern because essentially the water comes from wells, right? And the wells go across the 401. It's not like we have this well over here for Cambridge and this one for Kitchener, like they're all linked. So we have a regional level of government for the water supply, but water also affects how much a city grows. So the cities have a role with the sewers, and that impacts how much the city can grow. So I think it's good that we have that balance between the regional interest and the local interest. I think that's important to be able to respect both jurisdictions.
Okay, good. So quick time check. Probably will end with the last question I have, and then basically in the end you can say all the good things about city of Cambridge, why people should move to Cambridge. So my last question is something to do with the builders. So let's say on the affordable housing, the federal government says, okay, 10 million, 20 million. How does the city give this contract to the builders? Is there any bidding process? There is a transparency. How does that process work? Who gets, like, which builder gets what? Or people or builders from Toronto are allowed to bid here? How does that process work? If you want to share.
So I would say when it comes to like actual developments, the builders, I guess it's in terms of who builds what. I guess it depends who buys the land first, right? So the
Okay.
city is allowed so much. The city of Cambridge is allowed so much room to expand. So I guess whoever buys the vacant parcels, they get to develop them. But for affordable housing, in terms of who gets the money, I guess it could be anybody as long as they meet the qualifications. So my understanding is there would be a process like if money is being granted for like affordable housing, there would be a criteria that you have to meet. And I guess that the city and the region would review that, and then it would be granted accordingly to those who meet that criteria. So just to give you the example about the funding that the city does, like the tax increment financing, we have the rules in place, and it's in a certain area of the city. So whoever buys land on Hesper Road or in the core areas, as long as they meet the criteria, they can have that kind of agreement with the city if they meet the criteria. And our planners would be the ones to review that to make sure that they qualify, and then they would make a recommendation to council saying that either the builder qualifies or they don't, depending on how much they charge for the units. So a lot of it is basically who meets the qualifications, and there's a thorough process to go through for that.
Do you think is that information available for public preview? Like, is it something on the website, like, or it's more you have to ask and get that information?
Oh, it certainly would be public, and like planning applications in general are public. So if we have a developer who buys land on Hesper Road and wants to put in affordable housing and take advantage of some of these programs, that is a public process, and there's an opportunity for the public to read it online, or they could. I guess they can't show up at a meeting because everything's online, but they could certainly follow online, and if they want to comment, they could phone in and speak on the phone to council and provide their feedback as part of that process. They could do written comments and things like that. So it's all public, and there's an opportunity for people to comment along the way, and then council and our staff will review that.
Okay. It would be nice to have, I always feel it's nice to have a website where, let's say, people looking for a house or something, they can go and register, and it's there available for people. See, maybe know how many people are looking for a house, what kind of house they're looking, and what's affordable housing, right? I don't know if there is any website or not.
That's a good point, Manny. There probably is some way people can connect, but we're always looking for ways to improve the website. So I can certainly take that back and see how we can draw more awareness. I know there are quite a few people on the waiting list. I don't know the exact number, if it's a couple thousand or if it's 1,200 or something, I'm not sure. But I know a lot of people are on the list waiting. And whenever we get these kind of projects coming in, we're able to notify people on that list to see if they still want it. But I can't emphasize the urgency, Manny. Things are getting very serious with the lack of affordability. And I have to tell you, I never thought homes in my neighborhood would be $1 million. I never thought that growing up. I knew the prices in Cambridge would go up because it's such a beautiful city. It's a prime location, and I knew that eventually, when things got more built up and when we would get more jobs, that the prices would go up. I just didn't think it would be like in the $1 million range. That's how Oakville was back then, like the rich cities like that, right? And I never thought that the average city would see those kind of prices. It's really sad how unattainable it's becoming to the average person. So hopefully we'll see a lot more activity on that front. But council's been very proactive, and and certainly our staff. So we'll continue to work on that file.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Nicholas. I think we chatted for almost an hour, and I just want to thank you for your time. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Finally, do you want to say something to everyone? Why somebody should move to city of Cambridge?
Thank you, Manny. I would say Cambridge has like the best quality of life. We have a very robust economy, and it's the people of the city that really make it what it is. And we're a very giving community where we have a lot of people who support our charities on a regular basis, and our volunteer rate is one of the highest in the province. We really have a lot of people who get involved in the city, and they champion different causes, and it's just it's a city that looks out for each other, and people are pretty engaged in politics, which I think is great. I enjoy getting that feedback as a councillor. We're very centrally located. You can get to a large chunk of the province in 2 hours or less. And, for those who do work out of town, there are many areas you can get to in 40 minutes. So, if they got employment in London or Hamilton or something, those areas are all within commuting distance. Although I encourage people to work locally, but if they have to work out of town, that option is there. And Cambridge is a very unique city, a lot of character, and just the topography of when I look at the hills that surround the city. Someone said to me, "Oh, it looks like Pennsylvania or some of the hills in different parts of the country." I mean, it's not the Rocky Mountains, but it does have that nice feel with whether it's the Appalachian Mountains or something. I'm like, yeah, we do have that charm with the hills. And, even with the river, like just the quietness of the river, a lot of areas feel like you're up north somewhere on a lake or something, but you're on the Grand River or the Speed River, and just seeing the way the water reflects and hearing it flow by the dams and stuff. And, just the character of the city, the limestone, and the different types of lighting. And, so it's a beautiful city. The people are what make the community, of course, and I'm very proud to be able to represent it. And I have an open door policy. People can look me up online if they ever want to talk about the different issues, and I'll certainly do what I can to address things.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. All whatever you said, all your insight, and like I said in the beginning, that you're very interactive. And I just want you to just continue posting all this good photograph, all the nature photo, promote city of Cambridge. I always say this whole region is God's own region.
It is, Manny. I mean, each city has their character and their different unique things, right? I think that's what makes the area great. And thanks for following my photos. Yeah, I'm an outdoor person. As you can see, I'm always out with my camera taking photos of things. And yeah, I just love highlighting the beauty of the area. So,
okay. Thank you so much. We'll talk some other time. But it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining Namaste Debate.
You're welcome, Manny. It's been my pleasure, and I wish you the best for 2021. And I look forward to staying in touch and doing this again sometime.
Okay. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Same here.